doing this super weird. It's like
Okay, I'm about to call it.
so you should have received an email where you like will create a login. So if you check your you did that, so you go to
In a world that feeds on moral outrage, we are here to cultivate moral courage. In a time that prizes picking sides, we gather to draw a wider circle. And in a culture that teaches us to get for what we give and to ask, what's in it for me? We come to practice generosity and to remember we are all in this together. In the midst of life's bitterness, we choose to sing, to give thanks, to laugh together, and to be keepers of beauty, to offer a place of belonging for all who come in gladness and in pain, to resist the push to the next moment and the next, to slow down, to breathe more deeply, to feel a part of something greater for this hour and in this space. Let us be the change we wish to see. It is good we gather. It is good we gather together. It is good we gather together to raise up that which is worthy. As Mary Beth lights the chalice, please join us. Add your voice to say the words either in English or Spanish. We'll do it all together, all at once. Here we go. Encendemos esta llama para recordarnos de la luz de verdad, la calidad de la comunidad y el fuego de compromiso.
Good morning, and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington. It's the beginning of Mes-a-Tanus, or the ice-forming month of November. The leaves have almost all fallen from this week's wind and rain. We hear the geese on their move south. The natural world has begun to slow down, and so might we. Hopefully you savored that extra hour this morning for just this reason. The First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington is located on Indakina, the unceded, traditional, and contemporary homelands of the Winooskik Band of the Abenaki. Let us acknowledge together the Abenaki people who have cared for this land and its waters throughout the generations and today. And let us pause to recognize the enslaved people, primarily of African descent, whose labor and suffering built and grew the economy and infrastructure of this nation. Today, we acknowledge the distinct history of these interconnected people. We know that the impact of the past harms can still be seen and felt today, and that it is by first telling the truth that we can begin to seek and act for justice. My name is Mary Beth McNulty. I use she, her pronouns, and I am one of the worship associates here. It's a pleasure to see all of you here, and also wonderful to know that more people are joining us through the live streaming service. Hello. Is there anyone here today for the first or second time and would be willing to give us a wave? Oh, welcome. Look at that. Love that. Today's welcome ambassadors are Courtney and Mark Power Freeman. Let's give them a wave, too. Excellent. All newcomers are welcome to join our welcome ambassadors for a coffee and conversation, information about the First UU at today's coffee hour, down the stairs or via the elevator just through this door. I have a couple of announcements for you this morning. First, for those who are interested in learning more about our endowment situation, our endowment committee will be hanging out here in the sanctuary beginning at 11:30 to answer your questions and tell you more. You may be curious based on last Sunday's congressional conversation with the board and the communications from the board about how we are approaching our recent tax credit windfall. And our coffee house team is hoping you can join them Friday, November 7th at the UU Coffee House and open mic and tasty dessert potluck. It's in the parlor starting at 6:30. All are welcome, especially our newcomers. And speaking of newcomers, Reverend Karen's informal meet and greet the minister is happening today at 11:30 a.m. and the parlor's just behind me. Friends, just as you are, whatever it took for you to make it here this morning, you are welcome.
Good morning, I'm Liam, I'm your music director. I just wanted to let you know our opening hymn this morning is themed for our Earth teacher again. Our Earth teacher this month is Storm. And this hymn contains the line, "The storm is raging, and so are we." This is "The Tide is Rising." It's from our new virtual hymnal. We printed out copies of the music that they're on the blue sheets that you will find in the pews. So if you'd like to read along on the music, you can use one of those. But as always, the words will be up here behind me. Here we go. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are born to be. This is where we are born to be. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. This is where we are born to be. This is where we are born to be. The land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. This is where we are born to be. This is where we are born to be. The storm is raging, and so are we. The storm is raging, and so are we. The storm is raging, and so are we. This is where we are born to be. This is where we are born to be. The sun is rising, and so are we. The sun is rising, and so are we. The sun is rising, and so are we. This is where we are born to be. This is where we are born to be. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. This is where we are born to be. This is where we are born to be.
Before our reading, I just want to let you know that Family Chapel is happening downstairs, and that's why we're skipping our reflection for all ages today. This story comes from the late John Lewis, who shared it in his memoir, Walking with the Wind. We share it today in the spirit of our November Earth teacher, Storm. John Lewis lived a long and full life asking of himself and asking of all of us to show up for justice, to do what we can and just a little bit more, to make sure that there was more fairness in our country. John Lewis grew up in a large extended family in Pike County, Alabama. In his memoir, Mr. Lewis shared a story about a time from his childhood when a big storm arrived while he was visiting his aunt's house. As the sky blackened due to the storm, his aunt herded all the children, 15 of them, inside her small house that had always felt big enough, but on this day felt small. It became surprisingly quiet, the playful shouting and laughter quieted by the fear that the storm brought with it. The wind had begun to howl, and with it, the house had begun to shake. Not only shake, but the house began to sway. The plank flooring began to bend, and then horribly, a corner of the room started to actually lift. His aunt, Seneva, responding to the danger of the house being pulled toward the sky, with everyone in it, told everyone to line up and clasp hands. Everyone did as they were told. As a group, she had them all walk toward the corner that was rising. The wind was screaming. The rain was beating heavy and loudly on the tin roof, and they walked, first to one corner, and then to another corner at a different end of the house when it began to lift. Back and forth, 15 children walking with the wind, with the weight of their small, trembling bodies holding that house to the ground. When John Lewis was much older and was writing down the story of his whole astounding life, he wrote these words: "More than half a century has passed since that day, and it has struck me more than once over these many years that our society is not unlike the children in that house, rocked again and again by the winds of one storm or another, the walls around us seeming at times as if they might fly apart." It seemed that way in the 1960s, at the height of the civil rights movement, when America itself felt as if it might burst at the seams. So much tension, so many storms. But the people of conscience never left the house. They never ran away. They stayed, they came together, and they did the best they could, clasping hands and moving toward the corner of the house that was the weakest. And then another corner would lift, and we would go there. And eventually, the storm would settle, and the house would still stand. But we knew another storm would come, and we would have to do it all over again. And we did, and we still do. All of us, you and I, children holding hands, walking with the wind.
Now is the time in our service for our spiritual practices, acts of generosity and support for social change in our communities, ritual and music and moving our bodies together, prayer and meditation. All are invited, none are required. Let us begin. May you settle into this space of what some call meditation and others call prayer and still others call centering or grounding. Find that posture of body and mind that allows you to connect with breath. See if you can, even if for just a moment, let fall away thoughts, or at least their pestering cadence. Join us here in this communal body of love. Spirit of life and love, help us to understand what is comprehensible and to make it through that which will always be beyond our knowing. Help our science minds and hearts that appreciate mystery groove in the space of uncertainty, take curiosity as our dance partner, and find ourselves well companioned. May we recognize storms thronging through the landscape of both earth and heart. And even as their amorality strikes a dissonant chord, given the destruction they wreak, may we recognize their essence. This storm, abrupt loss of someone we love, leaving us bereft. That storm, hurricane, real, tearing limb from trunk, home from foundation, ease from daily life. Another storm, the spiral of despair, cyclonic in quality and texture, insisting on being with us. Let us be reminded that storms are elemental weather existing not only on this planet, but on others. Essential existence, that storms generate energy, wipe clean, restore. This too can be storm, not destroying but cleansing the land, or people power gathering and growing, bringing about change that will nourish the democracy-droughted land. Here in the circle of care, this community of compassion, we hold the Williamson family who grieves the death of Zach's father, Kim's father-in-law, Aiden and Isaac's grandfather, who died last week. In this circle of care, this community of compassion, we hold Nina Dahlstedt-Boos, whose husband, Mel, died suddenly and unexpectedly on Friday morning. As shock resides much too close, let us send Nina, whether you know her or not, our loving prayers and energy and well wishes at this devastating time. In this circle of care, this community of compassion, I make a personal ask that you hold me and my Aunt Barbara and our whole family as we grieve the loss of my uncle Thor, yes, that was his name, who died this last Monday, nearly 95. In this connected circle of care, this wide community of compassion, we raise our voices and support for those in Jamaica and Cuba and Haiti, the whole Caribbean impacted by the destruction of Hurricane Melissa. In the circle of care, this community of longing for peace, we hold Sudan in our hearts. We hold Ukraine. We hold Gaza. We hold Venezuela, the target of our own nation's illegal war. In the circle of care, this community against hunger, we shift our moral weight to do all that we can in the face of growing food insecurity, due to the cruel and illegal absence of funding of SNAP benefits. May that change soon. In the circle of care, this community that recognizes grief, we give thanks to all who participated and attended this year's service of loss and remembrance this past Wednesday. And because there has been so much heaviness, this joy, in this circle, this community of joy, we are delighted upon the recent discovery that Ms. Rachel, the famous toddler and preschool children person, was raised UU, as was her husband, and they met in a UU church. Now, if you don't know who Ms. Rachel is, speak to someone with a child or grandchild who's preschool age or toddler. May the joys and sorrows and gratitudes that go unspoken be honored and recognized in spiritual and metaphysical ways that grow our connections to community. Let us spend just a few moments in shared stillness as we connect to the prayers within our own hearts until the chime rings again. And prayers for the first responders and whoever that siren is for. Amen.
As a justice-seeking spiritual community, our generosity practice includes sharing half of the offering each Sunday. Offerings this month will be shared with 350 Vermont, which is building a people-powered and people-led climate justice movement in Vermont for a just, thriving world. They are guided by the voices, experiences, and solutions of those most impacted by the global climate crisis. 350 Vermont strives to work at the intersections of the climate crisis and social justice to address the climate crisis equitably and effectively by building collective power for climate justice. When the music plays in just a moment, we invite you to come forward to silently mark a joy, a sorrow, or a gratitude in your life by moving a stone from one of the baskets onto the table, creating a representation of our shared lives at this particular fleeting moment. As you are moved, please come forward along the outer aisle and return to your seat via the central aisle in 2 lines. I'll add that it's perfectly okay for multiple people to place their stone at a time on the table. And if you have a gift to add to the offering, you can place it in one of the baskets here or over there, or you can make your offering online. If you are at home, or any of you who want to remain seated, we invite you to lean into the music as an opportunity for stillness and centering as makes sense for you. please join me in our offering dedication words. With gratitude, we dedicate these gifts in the service of our mission to inspire spiritual growth, care for each other and our community, seek truth, and act for justice.
I now invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join in singing hymn number 402, From You I Receive.
I didn't tell the AV folks that I was going to be up here. Y'all okay? Good. My apologies. So I want to start with what is a quote but strikes me as a poem from the book The Painted Drum by Indigenous author Louise Erdrich. Life will break you. Nobody can protect you from that, and living alone won't either, for solitude will also break you with its yearning. You have to love. You have to feel. It is the reason you are here on earth. You are here to risk your heart. You are here to be swallowed up. And when it happens that you are broken, or betrayed, or left, or hurt, or death brushes near, let yourself sit by an apple tree and listen to the apples falling around you in heaps, wasting their sweetness. Tell yourself you have tasted as many as you can. So back in the day, before I was a minister, I had a job. I worked for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in a semi-private, semi-public organization whose mission was to prevent child abuse. I had that job for 8 years, and it was my favorite job until I came here. Now, it was based in Boston, though my work was all over the state. I didn't live in Boston. I lived in Northampton, 2 hours away. I was a single mom raising 2 kids, luckily in a village that included a UU congregation. So I had help, but every Monday I had to drive 2 hours to Boston to get there, and 2 hours at the end of that long workday. How many of you are familiar with the Boston area? Right. So maybe you know this, but in driving west on the Mass Pike, outside of Boston, outside of Cambridge, in Alston, there at least used to be, I don't know if it's still there, a Mass Millions, Mega Millions bulletin board that announced how much money I could win this week. And it would crawl up to astronomical amounts of money. And then it would fall because somebody would win, not me. And then it would go. And so from Alston to Framingham, possibly even all the way to Hopkinton, I would daydream. What would I do with those millions of dollars? And after I paid off my student loans and paid off my mortgage and paid off my mom's mortgage and, kind of the like small inner circle, the best part of the daydreaming, because that was so much money, was how I would pick a group of people, some of them my friends, some of them strangers that I admired, and we'd come together and we would figure out how we would give it away. Have any of you ever had a daydream like that? Yeah. So, last week, the board had a conversation that anyone here was invited to, and many came. We also the board put out information about this because we have experienced not a lottery windfall, but a windfall from the employment retention tax credit. So this is when the fact that during the pandemic, this congregation kept many people employed, didn't lay them off. And so we got a reward for that from the federal government. And it was kind of shocking. We've been telling you all along that this was coming, but we weren't counting on it until it was in the bank account, right? It turned out to be $239,000. Yeah, shocking in a good way. And so the board has been working with great intention on what to do with that money and shared the plan with everybody and that meeting last Sunday and in the e-news so that you know that there's transparency. And some of the ways that we're using the money are super not sexy. Like there have been staff here who have been working with laptops that were using Microsoft Windows 10 that went obsolete a month ago. So no longer, that was Liam. So new laptops. This may not sound sexy. It's sexy to me. A new website, friends, is on its way. If you have ever heard me talk about our website, it's like an old New England farmhouse. It started here, and then we're like, oh, we need a new room, and then we need a new thing, and it's just been growing like this until it's just kind of untenable. So that's exciting. We are also doing some very prudent things, and we are doing some missional things. One of the things that we're doing is we're creating something called a resilience fund, which will help us be more nimble in having direct impact on things related to our mission. I'm actually not going to talk to you about this today, but that's the thing that really excites me. More on that later. What we are doing that also is exciting is something that we are calling 5 to Thrive. 5 to Thrive. So 239,000 is a lot like 240,000, and so 5% of that number is $12,000. And the board has said, to live into our values, we cannot keep all this money. This money must be paid forward, paid out to the interdependent web of all existence. And so $12,000, 5 to Thrive, will go out to community partners who don't live our values, who live our shared values. And we're so lucky. We're using our 6 justice teams. They've all been invited to create together, we hope, a coordinated proposal with what to do with that $12,000 as a way to embody our vision for ministry. Right? Our 6 justice teams are the racial justice team, the immigration justice team, the climate justice team, our Sunday morning breakfast, our radical welcoming team, and our new Palestine solidarity team. Those 6 groups are going to get together, create a proposal, and give it to the board who will have final say. But they're acting on all of our behalves to help thriving happen, to help, right? Help us move our weight over here when this part of the foundation is being lifted up by the storm. Helping make sure that everyone gets a taste of those sweet apples. It's a little bit bigger, like we did last year when we had our reverse offering. How many here remember we gave you money and you passed it along, right? Because one of our core values as Unitarian Universalists is generosity. And we always need to figure out how to practice it, because once is never enough. But when we do, it's like a magic penny. Because if we held it close, we wouldn't have any. But if we lend it, if we spend it, if we give it away, we'll have so many as a community. So I want to ask you, we as an institution are choosing this, how might you choose 5 to thrive? How might you, if you were to experience a windfall, and I know not all of us do, not all of us will in this lifetime, but if you were to experience a windfall, win the lottery. It's hard if you don't play, and no shade on people who play, but I never got to win the Mass Millions because I never played. If you find a tenner on the ground, right? Or if you receive a bequest, right? What would your UU values ask of you, guide you to do with that windfall? Now, 15 years ago, we celebrated our 200th anniversary as a congregation. And one of the wonderful things that I understand happened is that we formed our first planned giving team. These are people who invite people who have resources to leave some when they die to this place so that it might continue on. They're called the Legacy Society. There's actually a plaque back there that says people who have given in that way. And I'm so thankful that 15 years ago, you all had the wisdom to start this, because our first UU trust, what we consider our endowment, just in the past 5 years, has grown from 350,000 to 950,000. Now, some of that is stock market, I say wincing. And a lot of that is because of the practice of generosity of people who had resources who said, when I die, I'd like some of it to benefit this congregation. So a shout out, especially to the silent generation, that's the generation before the boomers, right? Because they are the ones from whom we have experienced this abundance. And I raise up the question of generations in part because of the thing I want to tell you about next, the great wealth transfer. Now, here's usually what I do. I have this wiggle dance or an hourglass dance. So if we think about the boomer generation, 1946 to 1964, and we say it's about this many people, and of course some of the boomers have died, right? But this many people. And then we go down to Gen X, which is my generation, it's like this. It's about half. Just in sheer numbers. This is why 20 years ago, we could have a board of 12 people and that would be basically fine. But when we only have half as many people, we cannot have as large a groups making decision making because there aren't as many groups in that kind of age leadership. So boomers, Gen X, and then millennials. You see the hourglass? Millennials are about the same, slightly more than the boomer generation. Okay, so you have that in your head. I tell you this because not everybody in the baby boomer generation, but the boomer generation as a whole is the wealthiest generation the United States has ever seen. And baby boomers account for nearly 52% of the country's total wealth and are worth somewhere between 68 and 84 trillion dollars. Again, not all boomers. Because this wealth has been spread inequitably, unevenly, and not surprisingly, right, of course, around racial lines. That's one of the ways in which it's been inequitable. The youngest of the boomers are now 61, the oldest are 79. And of that wealth, people who know this stuff, who work in the world of finance, tell us that we are in the midst of a great wealth transfer, those assets are being passed on to spouses, to children, and 18 trillion is expected to be donated to meaningful charities between now and 2048. Now, history can only inform us, it doesn't predict or determine, and we know that late-stage capitalism is pretty damn ruthless. So what we know about the past may not apply because of the rising cost of healthcare. An asset that costs this much and you have to pay to just stay alive and stay healthy means that asset shrinks. Right? There's apparently a growing pattern of some boomers giving while living, so not leaving it till when they die to pass it on. There is family estrangement at numbers we haven't seen before. And people are living longer. Right? So this great wealth transfer that is happening, it is anticipated to happening, is a thing, but it's a nuanced thing. But it's our own endowment tells us it is happening. And I can't say enough, right? Not everyone will benefit from this, but there are people in the room who will. People on the live stream who will, who already have. And when we think about generosity as one of our core UU values, defining aspects of who we are, I can't help but wonder how we might find a way to embody 5 to thrive, or 2 to thrive, or 3 to 5, or 20 to thrive, depending on our own circumstances. And as the senior minister of this august institution, part of me wants to say, if that's you, would you give it to the Meeting House Fund? Would you give it to the First UU Trust? Would you give it to this new Resilience Fund? But as your minister, right, your minister, I just want you to find a cause you care about. The one where you would join hands with others to make sure the winds don't tear off the foundation. And see if you can extend some of that windfall, some of that abundance there. Not today. If you remember any of my sermons, I want you to remember this one. Not because I'm greedy, but because I love you. And because it is part of how we taste the sweet apples that fall, by giving them away. By giving them away. So, let us do our part, both to taste the sweet apples and make sure others get to taste them, and a few wasting their sweetness, right? The wasps need to live too. Let us do our part to keep our house and the houses of those that build our community solid on solid ground, because the storms are raging, friends. The storms are raging. So be it. See to it. Amen.
Our closing hymn today is Magic Penny. If you know it, then feel free to sing along through the whole thing. If you've not heard it before, I think you'll probably have the chorus at least by the end. So join in whenever you are ready. Okay, here we go.
Please join me in these words as we extinguish the chalice, in Spanish or English. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with the world until we are together again.
I am a little bit surprised at how quickly this service has gone. It's much shorter than usual. And we didn't, during the welcome, invite you to talk to each other. So you could go to coffee hour right away, but you might also turn to your neighbor after the benediction and after the postlude and talk with each other. May you know the blessing you already are. May you sense the blessing you yet can be, and may we all go out and be a blessing in the world.